Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this video is going to be your comprehensive guide to the neutral safety switch problems and how to fix them in various vehicle brands and models. We are diving into everything you've ever wanted to know about the neutral safety switch, starting from what the neutral safety switch does, why it fails, diagnosis, and symptoms you should look out for when it starts acting up. I'll also show you how to test it properly, whether you're using a multimeter or just checking it manually. And the best part, we are also going to show you step by step how to bypass the neutral safety switch, especially if you're stuck and just need to get rid of it and have your car running again. So, whether you drive a Chevy Silverado, 4L60E, 4L80E, LS Swap, or even something like a John Deere 1025R, I'll walk you through the bypass steps safely and clearly. And if you're wondering whether it's better to bypass or replace the switch, we'll discuss that too, along with the cost, tools, and wiring diagrams to make the job easier. And finally, I'll even answer the most common questions I get about this, such as, will a car start without a neutral safety switch? Can I drive with a bad one? How do I know if mine's bad or it's something else, like the ignition switch? So whether you're fixing, bypassing, or just trying to understand what's going on with your starting system, this video's for you. If you are ready, grab your tools, settle in, and let's go. Now, let's start with one of the biggest questions I get all the time. Can a car actually start without a neutral safety switch? Well, the answer is maybe. In some cases, it can crank, but it's not supposed to. That's because the neutral safety switch is there to protect you. It prevents the engine from starting unless your car is in park or neutral. Without it, you risk your car jumping forward or backward unexpectedly, which is obviously dangerous. So what actually happens when it starts to go bad? Here are some of the early warning signs you need to watch out for. You might notice your car stalls when stopped at a light, or it suddenly won't start in park, but starts in neutral. That's a big problem. Shifting might start to feel off or delayed, especially in automatics. And if you have ever asked or wondered if a neutral safety switch can cause shifting problems, well, the answer is yes. A bad neutral safety switch can absolutely cause shift problems, especially in transmissions like the 4L60E or 4L80E, which we will show in a bit how to bypass them. So if any of those symptoms sound familiar, it's time to test and diagnose the switch. Don't worry, it's easier than it sounds. In just a bit, I'll show you how to test it properly with a multimeter, including where to place your leads, what voltage readings to expect, and how to spot the faulty connection. And if you're not using a multimeter, I will also show you a manual way to reset and check if the switch is still working, especially useful on older models like the 2003 Silverado or even tractors like the John Deere 1025R. Before we move on, there are other problems that might mimic a bad neutral safety switch. Bad starter relay. It will click but will not crank. Blown fuse, especially under dash or engine fuse box. Dead battery or weak connection. Ignition switch failure. Security system preventing start, e.g. GM pass lock. How to test or diagnose a neutral safety switch. All right, now let's talk about how to test or diagnose a neutral safety switch. And don't worry, you don't need to be a certified mechanic to do this. Method 1. Using a multimeter, accurate and reliable. If you've got a basic multimeter at home, you're already halfway there. Here's how to do it. Locate the neutral safety switch. It's usually found on the transmission or near the gear shifter, depending on whether your car is front or rear wheel drive. Disconnect the wiring harness from the switch. Set your multimeter to continuity or ohms. Now move your shifter to park and touch the multimeter probes to the terminals on the switch. If there's continuity in park, great, it's doing its job. No continuity? Try again in neutral. Still nothing? You've probably got a bad switch on your hands. How to bench test the switch. Set the switch on a table and connect multimeter probes to the input-output terminals. Rotate or press the actuator as you would shift into gear. Look for continuity in park and neutral positions only. No continuity equals failed switch. Tip: make sure the ignition is off and your battery is disconnected while testing to avoid false readings or shorts. Method 2. Manual check and quick reset. If you don't have a multimeter or just want a quick check, try wiggling the shifter slightly while starting the car. If it suddenly starts in neutral or only at a certain angle, your switch is likely misaligned. You can reset the switch by loosening its mounting bolts and gently rotating it a few degrees while someone holds the shifter in park or neutral. Oh, then retighten the bolts and try starting the car again. This method works well for vehicles like the Chevy Silverado, some Toyota models, and even John Deere tractors like the 1025R. How to fix a neutral safety switch. when it's still salvageable. If your test shows intermittent connection or your car only starts when jiggling the shifter, the switch might not be fully dead, just dirty, loose, or slightly misaligned. Here's how you can try fixing it. Remove the switch from its mount carefully after disconnecting the battery and wiring harness. Inspect for corrosion or gunk on the terminals or housing. Use an electronic contact cleaner and a soft brush to clean it out. Check the internal plunger or slide contacts if it's a serviceable switch, not sealed. Dirt or metal shavings can block the contacts. After cleaning, realign and reinstall the switch securely. Make sure it's perfectly aligned with the gear selector, especially important in older Chevys and Toyotas. Reconnect the battery and test again in both park and neutral. Really, sometimes fixing is just a matter of cleaning plus realignment. No need to spend $80 plus on a new switch unless it's cracked or worn out internally. If none of that works, don't worry. In the next section, we'll go over how to bypass the switch safely so you're not stranded. How to bypass the neutral safety switch. Disclaimer: bypassing the neutral safety switch removes a critical safety feature. Only perform this for testing or emergency use. Driving long-term with a bypassed switch is not recommended and may be illegal depending on your region. Now that we have got that out of the way, let's say your car won't start. You've tested the neutral safety switch and confirmed it is the problem. Now you're either stuck or just need a quick way to start your vehicle, even with the bad neutral safety switch, especially if it's not worth replacing immediately. Now let's go through how to bypass it safely without damaging your car's electrical system. Step 1. Locate the neutral safety switch. The switch is usually mounted on the transmission near the shift linkage for automatic vehicles, like the 4L60E, 4L80E, 6L80E, near the clutch pedal for manual transmissions, like on the Ford Focus. For something like the John Deere 1025R, it's located under the seat or under the transmission control arm, depending on the year. If you're working on a 4L60E or 4L80E transmission, look on the driver's side near the gear selector shaft. You'll see a connector with 4 to 7 wires. That's the switch. Step 2. Identify the starter relay wires. Use a multimeter or wiring diagram to locate the 2 wires responsible for starter engagement. On most models, one wire comes from the ignition switch power signal. The other goes to the starter solenoid. You're looking to bridge these 2 wires to simulate a signal from the neutral switch, essentially telling the car it's okay to crank. If you're not sure, use a test light while turning the key. The wire that lights up is the ignition signal. Step 3. Make the bypass connection. A very important thing to know is that you should only do this temporarily or in emergencies. Bypassing this switch removes a safety feature. Once you've found the correct wires, use a short jumper wire or splice connector to bridge the starter relay wires directly. You can install a momentary push-button switch between them if you want something more controlled, like a starter button. On John Deere 1025R, you can disconnect the seat safety switch or PTO switch, then bridge the wires with a resistor or loopback connector. Many owners use a seat switch bypass clip for quick access. But be careful, if the tractor's PTO is engaged, bypassing can be dangerous. On Silverado, 4L60E, 4L80E, the wire colors may vary, but generally the purple wire is the starter trigger, and you're bridging it with a 12V ignition signal, often pink or red. Always double check with a wiring diagram or manual. Step 4. Test the bypass. Turn the key with the bypass connected. If the engine cranks and starts, you've successfully bypassed the switch. If nothing happens or you hear clicking, double check your wire identification and make sure you didn't bypass a ground or ECU signal wire. Step 5. Secure the connection if temporary use is needed. If you're only doing this to move the vehicle or start it in an emergency, remove the bypass once done. If you're keeping the bypass longer, use heat shrink connectors or soldered joints with insulation to avoid short circuit. Please, this method disables an important safety interlock. If someone starts the vehicle in gear, it can lurch forward. So, only bypass for testing or emergencies. Replace the switch as soon as possible for safe, long-term driving. All right, now let's get into the part that you are all waiting for: how to deal with a neutral safety switch on your specific vehicle. Whether you're trying to diagnose, bypass, or replace it, feel free to use the timestamp to skip to your specific vehicle. As we walk you through Chevy Silverado, Ford Focus, LS swap builds, and even the John Deere 1025R, diagnose, bypass, or replacement. Chevy Silverado and 4L60E, 4L80E, 6L80E transmission, 2000s to 2010s. If you're working on a Silverado or anything running a 4L60E or 4L80E, the neutral safety switch is part of the range position sensor, located right on the transmission. You'll typically see a 7-wire connector on the driver's side. The purple wire is usually your starter signal. The pink or red wire brings 12 volts ignition power. Common issue: corrosion or broken wires inside the plug. If you're not getting a crank signal, unplug and test for continuity between ignition and starter wires while the shifter is in park or neutral. Ford Focus, manual transmission clutch switch. For manual Ford Focus models, instead of a traditional neutral safety switch, you're looking at a clutch position switch. It's usually located right above the clutch pedal. If the switch fails, the car won't crank even if everything else is fine. Use a multimeter to check continuity. The circuit should close when you fully depress the clutch. DIY fix. In a pinch, you can jump the 2 wires at the switch connector to simulate a pressed clutch. But remember, bypassing this disables a critical safety feature, especially if someone starts the car while in gear. LS swaps. For those of you running LS swaps, things get a bit custom. Many aftermarket harnesses skip the neutral safety circuit, assuming you'll handle that manually. If your swap doesn't crank, trace the starter circuit and add a neutral safety loop to your harness if missing. Install a toggle or push button inline on the starter signal wire and mount it somewhere safe. This acts like a manual, neutral safety control. Want to be clean about it? Follow a neutral safety switch wiring diagram for 4L60E if that's your trans, and adapt accordingly. John Deere 1025R. If you're working with the John Deere 1025R, the seat safety switch and PTO interlock often stop the engine from cranking. Locate the switch under the seat or beneath the footwell. You'll usually find 2 wires leading into the switch. To bypass, bridge the wires or use a seat switch bypass plug. They sell them online or at tractor shops. Repair or replace. So, what should you actually do? Bypass, repair, or replace the neutral safety switch? Well, here's the deal. If your switch is just slightly out of alignment or dirty, it may not need a full replacement. In many cases, you can fix it by cleaning the contacts, realigning the switch on the transmission, checking for frayed or corroded wiring, doing a simple reset. Just shifting through all gears while the key is on can sometimes re-engage the switch. But if you've tested the switch and it shows no continuity when it should, or the casing is cracked or broken, then it's time to replace it. We will get how to replace it in a bit, but before that, let's quickly look at the cost implementation. What does it cost? A new neutral safety switch costs anywhere from $20 to $150, depending on the vehicle. Labor at a shop can add another $100 to $300 depending on accessibility. But if you're handy, yes, you can replace it yourself. It's often held in by 2-3 bolts and a wiring harness. An easy weekend job if you follow the right steps. And if you're just looking to get the car started one last time, like in an emergency or towing situation, bypassing it might be a temporary solution. But long-term, always better to fix or replace it properly. Now here is how to replace a neutral safety switch, step by step. Tools you'll need: socket set or wrench, usually 10mm or similar. Flathead screwdriver. Jack and jack stands if the switch is under the vehicle. Safety gloves. Optional, a multimeter to test the new switch. Step 1, disconnect the battery. Step 2, locate the neutral safety switch. On automatic transmissions, it's usually mounted to the side of the transmission where the shift linkage connects. On manual transmissions, it may be on the clutch pedal or gear selector. If you're working on a Chevy Silverado, 4L60E, 4L80E, or Ford, it's typically on the driver's side of the transmission. Step 3, unplug the wiring harness. Carefully disconnect the electrical connector going to the switch. Press the tab and pull straight out. Don't yank. Step 4, remove the mounting bolts. Use your socket or wrench to remove the bolts securing the switch. Most vehicles use 2 or 3 bolts. Step 5, remove the old switch. Gently slide or wiggle the switch off the shaft or mount. Keep track of any washers or spacers. Step 6, align and install the new switch. Place the new switch where the old one was. Make sure it lines up with the shift shaft. You may need to turn the switch slightly to match alignment. Bolt it down snugly, not too tight, just firm enough to hold. Step 7. Reconnect the wiring harness. Plug the electrical connector back into the new switch until it clicks. Step 8. Reconnect the battery and test it. Turn the key to the on position and shift through gears. The car should only start in park or neutral. If it does, you've installed it correctly. Finally, let's look at some of the FAQs and give out quick answers to common questions on the topic. Can I drive with a bad neutral safety switch? You might be able to, but it's risky. Your car might not start the next time, or worse, it might start in gear, which is dangerous. Is the neutral safety switch part of the starting system? Absolutely. It blocks the starter circuit unless the car is in park or neutral. Will the car still crank with a bad neutral safety switch? Not usually. If it does, it's likely stuck closed or bypassed unintentionally. Where does the neutral safety switch get its power? From the ignition circuit. When you turn the key, it sends power through the switch to the starter if the gear selector is in the correct position. Can I replace it myself? Yes, most of the time. If you can reach the switch, usually on the transmission or under the console, it's a simple unplug, unbolt, swap, and reinstall. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you're also going to like this other video here when we talk about crank and not start and the common symptoms, reasons for it, and how to fix it. Please like and share this video with those it might be of help to, and subscribe for more.